just to kind of start out, maybe a little bit of myth busting. We'll get into here. What is one of the, we'll call it default beliefs about building and running communities that you think people are going to need to unlearn this year? And what, if anything, is replacing it? And I'm wondering if we can maybe start this conversation with Whitney. Can I lob the ball into your court for that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great question. And I think we'll see people kind of shifting away from this concept of more is better or bigger is better and really lean into redefining what scale looks like in community. So it's really important to get to that critical mass or that minimum viable community. And that's essentially the number of community members that you need in your space to make it a place of value and a place that's nurturing of the value that you intend to offer. But beyond that, I don't think larger numbers always translate to stronger communities. So I think we'll see people really focusing on intimacy and maintaining kind of more of a breadth or a depth over breadth approach and more of a qualitative over quantitative approach and really start to scale with milestones. So it's okay to kind of stay small and really build intentionally and integrate things into your community strategy that are valuable to both your community members and stakeholders at the right times for your community.
I love that quality over quantity approach to that, and I think that tracks very well with one of the things that I've sort of seen where a notion I think we need to disabuse ourselves of somewhat, which is that idea of community everywhere. I don't think community is everywhere. There are certainly on-ramps in some of the big social spaces, but I think as many people have seen over the past year, it is exhausting to try to be everywhere at once. And so that focus on finding quality, nurturing and curating spaces so that they are sustainable for ourselves in terms of our mental health and our well-being, as well as sustainable for the people that we're bringing into those spaces. For me, that's really important. So I see our virtual communities as ecosystems where there are places where you can find an entrance, but then there is a built for purpose community of practice or community of where interaction is actually taking place in all of that. So I think that tracks very well with what I'm seeing, and that for me that's like the big myth of 2026 to fight. Yurii, where are you with all this? What's the myth you want to fight?
You know, Todd, to your point, I have this mantra, meet people where they are. And, it's always like, of course, as a community, you have one dedicated space where you always invite people to join and keep the conversations going. But, for me personally, when I invite people to the events, sometimes I message them on WhatsApp, sometimes I message them on LinkedIn, sometimes I message them on Slack, which is kind of like community everywhere, even though we have still one, main group on WhatsApp where people are like joining. So it's always like intersected, interconnected. But yeah, for community builders, of course, it would be easier and better to keep everything in one space. And for other people, because you have conversations in one space and you have to continue, you have to build up on those relationships. And also, Whitney, to your point, it's all about value, not engagement. And I totally agree with that. And I think that many community builders are missing this point. They think that they need to drive engagement. And it's the number one question I'm asking people like a lot on LinkedIn. I'm sending them messages and asking like, what is the main challenge you are dealing with in your community? And they like, we need engagement. And I'm like, why do you need this? And usually there is a question, because we need to share some metrics, because we need to report, blah, blah, blah. So it's always like to start with why, to understand why is the community, like what is the value? What are you bringing? What community brings to your community members? And also, from my point, the myth, something that we have to, break it, is like protecting community. I hear this a lot. I protect my community from marketing team. I protect my community from sales team, from product team, etc. Like we don't really want to protect community. We want to co-create community. We want to collaborate, and before that, you have to kind of like go and ask, like go to a marketing team, go to a product team, go to a sales team and ask them, hey, how can I help you reach your business goals? And then you kind of like think about how to do this with a community. So you are being this kind of like bridge between other teams and your community members. And it's it's a very, very interesting journey. And I think that we all have to, shift from protecting community to co-creating community.
I'd love to dig into that a little bit because I think that that idea of protection comes from nervousness that, like, if I open my community to marketing or to sales or to these, that they're going to breach the trust that I've built so carefully with the members of my space. But to me, like the curative to that, or the corrective to that, is to educate them about what the community is and what it does, and to help them to modulate their messages for marketing and for sales so that they can bring those conversations in a natural way, so that they are creating trust in the ecosystem, right? I think that has to happen.
That's such a good point, especially the organic collaboration. You don't want something that's forced. You
When you
want
build a
something
community,
that
I always say that.
makes sense. Oh, I think
No,
we
no,
over.
go on, Whitney. We had some lag, but go on, please.
Yeah, there's a little latency there, right?
Oh, no worries. I was literally just echoing what you both were saying is that the collaboration in community is so important and it really shows through in the overall community experience and the way that people within that community space interact. So if you can really get, the full team on board, whether that be marketing, product, support, whoever, overall you're enhancing that totality of the customer experience.
And every community builder has to remember that if you are building internal community of like you are working in the company and you are building community of like employees of the company, it's okay. But if you are working with external community, you still work with internal community, and you have to build this internal community with your team members. And if you create these two sides of like one big community, it will be okay. There will be no miscommunication. Everything will be great. So you have to kind of like to do double work. Sorry, not sorry, but that's how it is. Yeah, you have to go with it.
I love this. For those of you who joined the webinar a little bit late, welcome. We're really glad you're here. We are talking about trends in community for 2026, and Whitney from Hivebrite, myself from Clocktower Advisors, and my dear friend Yurii from Community ROI. I love this conversation about the mythologies we need to break, and and maybe mindsets to approach within 2026. But there is a very practical concern that I think has affected all of us in the technology space over this past couple of years, and that's been the rise of AI technologies in the work that we do. It's very disruptive, and of course, I think when AI first came on the scene, I heard some noises from community professionals saying like, "Oh, is AI going to phase out communities? Do people not want communities anymore?" And my reaction has been, and I think the market has sort of corrected itself for this, is no, communities aren't going away, but the AI tech is going to affect things. It's going to affect how we do the work that we do, and as AI has become increasingly embedded in the platforms we use, in the community work that we do around maybe content or moderation, support, operations. I'm wondering where human attention fits into this, how it matters, and how maybe community teams should be designing community experiences when AI is in the mix. Um, and Yuri, do you want to take point on this one as we delve into
You
this
know,
this practical topic?
I currently like read a lot of books about AI and listen to many podcasts. And like sometimes ago I was thinking like, oh my God, AI will take my job. But now I clearly understand that it's happening every time, like since the humanity, everything. You have some tech progress, printing press, you have driving cars and all the things. Something happens. Some pieces of work are going away. You are creating some new pieces of work. And all through all of the like ages of humanity, it was always like human part. Why do we call it humanity? We are not calling it anyhow else. And us and kind of like augmenting our skills and helping us to think faster, to do things faster. And it's still human behind. You can delegate a lot of repetitive routine work to AI, and you will have more time to build like this real human connections and real human relationships. So for me, AI is my co-pilot. I don't really trust everything it says to me, so I kind of like recheck it, double check it. But yeah, I'm not afraid of it, and I believe that we need to use it for like stupid, shitty work, and then like be more humans afterwards. Whitney, what do you think about this?
Yeah, Yuri, I feel like AI is here to stay. I think just as you said, it's been such a huge innovation. If I think about, the lifetime of my grandfather, he's seen so much technological innovation and change in these past, like what, 80, 90 years. So the fact that AI is fairly new and it's already taken over in certain ways, to such extent, it's actually so interesting. And so I really like to experiment with it. I like to try the different tools and see what it looks like because, behind the AI of it all, there is still the human creation. But I think what's really important for community builders and for community folk to really think about is how do you create that balance of either automation or AI and the human touch? And I think that's where I've had some really interesting conversations online and offline about this. And for my customers, what's been really interesting to talk about is really the onboarding experience. And I think that's a really, cool part of the community experience for every member that joins the community. And do we want this to be more of a low touch experience, or do we want it to be more of a high touch experience? And what I mean by low touch is maybe you have how-to guides, maybe you have a video, maybe you have something that's completely scalable, built and designed into your community. And that's how you want people to onboard and start to be a part of your community. And then maybe you, on the high touch side, want to have a one-on-one call or a one-to-many call where you have a really great opportunity to give someone a walkthrough and really introduce them to the space that you've curated. And to be honest with you, a lot of my customers do whatever is in their capacity. So the hybrid would kind of be the ideal scenario where you can still have these scalable tools and then you have something that is, a bit of a welcome call or something to really introduce them to this space that they can rely on the scalable bits later. But it's something that I really think about because as AI becomes more and more integrated into all of these different tools that we're using for community, and socially, you want to make sure that that human touch stays visible and the human touch provides an opportunity for people to really build a relationship with the space in a way that's authentic and organic. And then the other thing that I was thinking about, sorry, I have so much to say on this topic, so I'll keep it brief, but is the content and writing with AI. So I really love to write, and I think it's a great opportunity to have my voice and my personality come out in the things that I say, because after all, we are, the way we present ourselves really represents us, especially in online and digital spaces. And so I think AI is really great for copywriting, but I think there is something that kind of emerges when so many people are using AI for content writing, and so you kind of lose that voice. So I would say it's a great tool and it's a great opportunity, but at the same time, if we want to keep balance, really think about is your voice shining through in the copy that is being either modified or edited with AI.
So many wonderful, wise things in there that both you and Yurii had to say that I want to respond to as well. I want to put this to our audience who are out here, who are collaborators in our little nascent community that we have growing here. What are your experiences? Like, how have you talked about AI internally for your communities? What challenges are you facing? What issues are you seeing? What opportunities are you seeing around the use of AI for communities? I wanted to respond to a couple of things. So Whitney, you had talked about sort of the quality of human touch and sort of the authenticity of voice and human voice. Like uh, I think the term that I've heard thrown around pretty frequently, not as much maybe lately, but earlier on, maybe last year, was the idea of AI generated slop. I think we've seen sort of an inundation of that in the copywriting space and around marketing and AI. AI is really great at maybe creating a summary of a discussion. It's maybe really great at doing some basic marketing copy. It's maybe I use it for doing report writing and things like that, where my voice doesn't really matter quite as much. But I 100% agree. I think that where where humans still shine and will probably continue to shine for the foreseeable future is the ability to convey human nuance, emotional depth, and just warmth within writing. Like AI cannot convey warmth with what it does, no matter how it tries. It can approximate it, but it's not good at that sort of thing. And so I think we're still negotiating what I've heard referred to as the jagged frontier. It's a jagged, invisible frontier of like what AI is better at and what humans are better at. And so there is a lot to be gained on that frontier by this new partner that we have in technology for doing so much of this stuff. It's incredibly powerful, but we need to use it in thoughtful, ethical, visible ways within our communities. You're going to say something,
Yeah,
Yuri?
Todd, to a point, exactly, you have to use it as a partner because like what I see like from my kid who's a teenager right now, like he trusts it. And I'm like, how can you trust it? It can tell you like that you are amazing and like all the time, even if you are wrong. So, as long as you are an expert, as long as you are know what is the right way of doing it, you can, yes, use it as your partner, but you can't trust it. It's like, it's stupid. It was a comment in the chat. So like we have been open about when we use it. So it's like fearing of AI as being afraid of your calculator. Yes, of course, as long as you can do math yourself. If you don't know how to do it, like it sucks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the quality of what you get from AI is the quality of what you put into it as well. So that's a mental note.
Um, well, what wonderful discussion. Some great comments coming through in the feed. Maybe we'll be able to address one or two of these in a little more detail as we go into our wrap up once we get past our core questions here. I wanted to move on and maybe talk a little bit about tactics or best practices for community building. I'm wondering if there's a tactic or approach that you feel has been maybe reliable or sort of an old standby up until now that is maybe going to lose effectiveness in 2026, and is there something else you might do instead? I'm going to toss this up as a jump ball for either Whitney or Yurii, whichever one of you talks first.
Yeah, sure. I have some thoughts. So I think right now we're seeing a lot of maybe polish and a bit of perfectionism in the way in which people present themselves online. I know I suffer from perfectionism, and if I have a typo every once in a while, I'll try and like edit my copy and be like, fix that. But I think we're really going to see people leaning more into authenticity and really embracing what makes us human. So this kind of calls back to the AI question as well, but it's okay to show up as your true self, and I think people will resonate with that more and really find a kinship with what you're providing, especially since people have so many options right now about where to exist online and in person. So if there's a space that, really comes out as something that's embracing individuality, authenticity, something organic, then I think people will really gravitate toward that. So if you're thinking about whether or not you should edit your typo in copy, maybe once in a while just leave it in there. Just see what that does and see if maybe yeah, that sparks something really original in your community. And maybe a joke. You can also use humor with your way of interacting with your community members to kind of take that polish off.
I love it. That's very punk rock of you. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, we're here. I don't like the phrase warts and all, but I mean that sentiment of being ourselves and being okay with things looking a little bit messy. I'm reminded of I think there's it's part of sort of a Japanese garden philosophy. You leave something like a little bit unfinished, a little bit imperfect, so that the mind wants to participate in that thing and maybe imagine what the rest of that would be like. We have this sort of fill in the blank mentality and sort of like maybe having a little bit of imperfection, having something that's maybe obviously not generated by AI is something that adds to the authenticity and the sense of really being in a place that has that sense of realness to it over time. I love that. I think that's really lovely.
Look, you can feel it when someone made something with AI. Like you can smell it, it just stinks. Because of course, if you are not trained, if you are trained on like LinkedIn algorithm or whatever, you read all the posts, yeah, you might have this thing. But if you read some books or maybe some real human posts before, you totally understand like when it was written by AI and when it was written by a human, and to the typos. And that's exactly how I do when I type. Of course, I recheck what I wrote, but if I see some small typos, I just let them be. I'm like, okay, as long as I'm not like misspelling someone's name. Someone's names, I'm always like, I'm always fixing it. But everything else, just let it be.
Yeah, just be authentic, however that makes sense for
Okay.
you. Maybe it's not necessarily a typo, but it's if it's something that really shows the personality of what you're doing and what the space is about, then I think that will be way more embraced in 2026. And I think communities who do this will really win over their community members and the people in their ecosystem because it really comes out as real and it comes across as genuine.
And I also feel like Todd, you've asked like overall, like about the community industry, not just about AI, yeah?
I did, yeah, yeah. I think,
So something that
please.
I'm also thinking about, like it's deeply in my heart. When I joined the international community world like 3 or even 4 years ago, I had this meaning in my head, sense of belonging. I thought that you joining community, you cannot track it, you cannot measure. There is just like random sense. You can feel it, but you cannot show it to anyone. And now I clearly understand that every time, if you are building, of course, if you are building community for, I don't know, parents or like teachers, whatever, just having some fun, or like dog lovers, cat lovers, etc., you can do whatever you want. But if you are building community around a business, you have to connect it with business goals. Always start with business goals and like kind of like going back down on like what are community tactics that will help you and your teams to achieve those business goals. There is no more sense of, okay, yes, there is sense of belonging. That's what does it mean, what it means like building human relationships. But if you are doing it like for money, if you are getting paid for that, like remember, no one pays you for being just a good human. At least I don't know about those experiences. If you know, tell me where it happens. I will go apply to work there. So just remember, you as every other, like as marketing, as sales, a product, you are there to make this business work. Yes, with a touch of human part. Yes, by connecting people and making them to talk. But you still have to keep this in mind. Like, what is number one business goal and how community can help to reach it?
This is a wonderful segue into my next question, which is, if you had to choose a metric to focus on in 2026 to measure community impact, what would it be and why? And I think you're really kind of leading into that, connecting the community to to whatever the business goal happens to be. It's very context sensitive. Whatever, if I'm in a nonprofit, it might be return on impact. I know you've had some people on your show, Yurii, who've talked about sort of ROI for nonprofits being return on impact of whatever the mission happens to be. For other organizations, it might be loyalty or it might be retention and acts of advocacy, within the space. So I'm quite interested in that. Whitney, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were about to jump in there too and say something.
No, no, I wasn't. I can go ahead though. So I totally agree that it depends on what your business objective is and what you'll want to measure. Also, that can change throughout the growth of your community. Maybe your community's maturity is at an earlier stage, so you're measuring different things, or maybe there's a different focus of your community as it grows and evolves. But I would say the one metric that I've been looking at the most lately and which feels resonant across the different types of communities and the community stages and that would be the returning number of members coming to your community or the returning rate. So I like this metric because it really encompasses maybe three core things that I've been thinking about a lot over the past year. I would say experience design is something that's quite interesting. So, how do people navigate your space once they arrive? Do they know where to go, how to interact, what to do? Do they know what value they should be getting out of the space? So, that is reflected in whether or not they come back and how often they come back. The other thing is, of course, that value. So, are they getting what they came for when they log into the community? And then lastly, it's that sense of belonging. So are you creating a space where people feel um, not necessarily warm and fuzzy, but happy to really be in that space? Does it cause any kind of like delight? And if they do come back, that is a really good signal, and that's something that you can track over time, especially as you have different events and things going on within your community.
I keep coming back to this. This has been around for a long time, but it's the sense of community index is a I think it's like a 28 question survey. It's free to use on, and it's been validated for online and offline use. And it asks questions like that. Do you feel like you belong in this space? Do you feel like you contribute here? Do you feel like you get your questions answered here? Really good things to apply. And they could even be applied, maybe even in a micro survey context, like as pop-ups or as part of the experience of being in the community. Did you solve something today, in the community? Has the community helped you in some way? I think that's useful. It's called the Sense of Community Index. I think it's technically the Sense of Community Index number 2 or part 2, something like that. But if you Google it or AI it, you'll be able to find the links to it pretty quickly. Otherwise, I can provide it for Kat and Whitney afterwards, and we can share it as part of the webinar, feedback piece. I love that. I love the sense of belonging piece. I was thinking about two metrics really. One of which I don't think would be surprising, but I think really having a focus on quality of contribution, like really leaning into that. Like if your community is about having meaningful interactions, we need metrics that are tracking not just the number of posts and the number of replies, but what is the quality of that content in the space, and what can we as community managers do to encourage higher degrees of content interactions with others. I think that will address some of those sense of belonging and loneliness issues as well, if we can really kind of solve for that as a metric. And one that just occurred to me that I hadn't really thought about a lot before, but we spend so much time measuring the things that are happening in the community, but I think it's worthwhile having a metric around the quality of stakeholder investment in the community. We talk about sort of like having to have a lot of internal conversations and doing road shows, internally about the value of the community, finding out what kind of business goals they have. Have we ever put a metric on that? Have we ever, had any kind of measure around what's an effective and healthy level of engagement from all of the stakeholders? It requires mapping, the different stakeholders in the organization and putting some kind of numerical, piece on that. But I think even from an executive level, saying like, look, we're seeing this level of commitment from each of you based on these independent criteria. We're always trying to get funding. Like the thing that really kills communities is funding. It's not typically, a lack of interest in the community or something that's just not working on that end. It's the fiscal end of it that usually bites us. So,
You know,
Ooh,
I,
that's
I
smart.
yeah, sorry, Whitney, go on, go on, go on.
No, no, it was just a quick remark that's such a smart way to think about it, the external metric as well.
Uh, yeah, I also truly believe, and I even had a conversation recently with Joshua Zarko, at the Community ROI podcast, and I asked him, like, do you think that community builders have to have some business background? And he told me that he literally finished some business program recently just to better understand it. And I can imagine it would be a combo. Can you imagine you have this humanity in you, you know how to build relationships, and you also understand the business and you can connect them. I feel like this every any other question will go away as long as you can speak metrics and KPIs and all this other scary words to your stakeholders. It would be so much easier, because it was the comment like in the beginning that in the chat that in a B2C community in tech, the engagement metrics are important to the execs, but they don't really care about the engagement metrics. They care about something else. And in their mind, they transform this engagement metrics in something that measures for them, because engagement itself doesn't bring your business forward. It makes no sense to track engagement as the sake of engagement. It definitely works for something else, and you totally need to understand what exactly it works. There are customer journeys. When you are like in sales or marketing, you have to have a community member journey, because community members are joining in very different levels. For example, if you are building a product community around some product or a service, You have some newbies who haven't heard about your product at all, and they randomly found your community online. You have some great users that been with you like for years and like great ambassadors, and you have someone in between. And of course, if you will like send one message to all of them, nah, I don't know. It won't work. You know, one size doesn't fit all, and you have totally to understand how to speak to different audiences. And you know, it's really hard for me to say about like to talk about specific metrics, but I can tell you that number one thing that you have to think is what is your main business goal? Is it a product? Is it marketing? Is it sales? And then tie all the metrics that you can track overall engagement, how much participants come into your events, or how much answers do you get to on your survey, blah, 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 and tie them to these specific business goals that you are working on. And then you can, you know, it's all about like every single person at Community RI Podcasts tell that it's not just about data, it's not just about story. When you have data and you can create a story around this, when you connect data and storytelling, that's the silver spot. That's how you talk to stakeholders, and that's how you make everyone engaged. So I feel like community builders have to be more storytellers, kind of.
I love it. And that's got to resonate with you, Whitney, is you're talking about storytelling as one of the things that's one of your core motivators as a professional in the community space.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's so important that your story doesn't only include numbers, but it tells the impact of those numbers and how that, of course, moves your objectives overall ahead. So whether that be for the organization itself or for the community itself, the the numbers should really correspond to the overall story that your community is telling.
I love that. And I think that I mean this is leading into a question I wanted to get at anyways was that question around business thinking and ROI and you know how we convey that. Something I've kind of leaned back on over the years is that it is really about storytelling to executive teams. As much as you can have sort of all the left brain metrics and statistics and proof points of things that are going on in the community, if you don't have a narrative to tell, if you can't create some human warmth around a story or an anecdote that illustrates what that metric points to. It's hard to get your executive team to engage emotionally. You know, we're not totally these left brain computers that make decisions according to logic. We're flawed, messy creatures, as I think has been the theme of one of the conversation here today. And leadership is the same. You know, they want to be moved by their investment in a platform and see that the community is something that is contributing to the bottom line. But hey, here's a human story about how it's affected somebody's life in a meaningful way.
I
And
think
also,
also, oh, go ahead.
it's always about a leg, you know, it's always a question like, but Whitney, go on. Of course, please go on.
I was just going to say that contextually, it's also to understand what is the story that execs may be already telling themselves about the community, or what do they hope to see? And that way, the story that you're actually telling with the community, you can have that really be aligned and make sure that the metrics support a narrative that is holistic and also including the many perspectives from both the exec point of view and then also the community member point of view. I would also say that community members love to see numbers and they love to have someone pull insights and share with them to say, hey, like this is actually the impact that this community space has had on me in my life and my professional career or whatever it is the community is really focused on. And you can really make sure that those numbers, you get feedback directly from community members about the stats and insights that you're pulling, and then share that with the more executive team. Because not only are you taking that further step to really pull those insights, but you're also getting their feedback to better understand what is it they value about what you're presenting to them is the value of that community. So it's a little meta, but at the same time, I think it really pulls everything full circle and it gives you that, yeah, that full story of how the impact is being driven at both levels.
That's an amazing addition. I love that. And I think about one community that I work in that I've loved being in for many years now, that is about helping people quit smoking and vaping. And you know, one of the reasons I get involved with that community, I like them is until we asked them, we didn't hear them actually say, I would be dead if I didn't have this community, you know, and like talk about a return on impact, you know, for an organization. to say that if they didn't have that online venue, that they wouldn't be there. That's a great story to bring back to any executive leader around the value of that space, that it's somehow been transformative in their lives and their identity, in their very survival. That's the powerful kind of storytelling that we need to engage with our leadership teams about.
You know, and also like that's the beauty of relationships and trust in the community. Because if people won't trust you, they will never tell you this. You will never get this kind of feedback. You know, I have some examples sometimes that, for example, so we have a product channel for people to share their feedback, to share like something if something is wrong, etc. But some people are still messaging me, and I'm like, hey, here is a product channel. Just go say it. And like, I don't want to talk to product team. I want to tell it to you. And I'm like, why do you do that? And yeah, we just have a good relationship. I'm like, no, okay, thank you. Tell me everything. I will just copy paste your message afterwards and put it into the product channel. So even though it's like pretty much the same, people still want, you know, they trust you, they believe you. And if you build this type of community, then you get this like nuggets of feedback, because otherwise they won't tell you if something works. They will always be there to say if something is wrong, but they will never tell you like such stories so that community kept them alive, you know? So that's the beauty of the community. And for those community builders who can make it happen, you're amazing. Just deal with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're winding a little low on time here, and there was one other question that I wanted to bring out here, and then maybe we can even deal with some questions on the Q&A side. I know Kat's been kind of watching and nurturing those in the chat here. But I'm curious, is there maybe an experiment or a pilot that you're running or considering for 2026 that you'd like to share with the rest of the group? And I don't know,
Go
Whitney,
ahead,
I,
Yurii.
I see your mic is unmuted, so I'll go with you first.
Okay, I didn't want to cut Yurii off if you wanted to start, but okay, I'll go. I'm super excited to work on a cohort program this year, which is essentially segmentation. So just as Yurii was referencing before, one size does not fit all. And it's really great when you get to a point where you feel like you know your community members and you're also leaning on data points and using those data points to send relevant information, content, and value to community members based on what they need at that stage in their life cycle with you. So that's something that I'm really excited to, yeah, jump into and see what that looks like for this year.
Really cool. Really cool. And Yurii, what about you? Oh, I think he's having a little lag there.
Outside experience. I have a lot of people are talking about community ROI. I see them here and there. Todd, looking on your face, it feels like you don't hear me or see me. I hope that everything is okay.
We do
We
now.
No,
We do
all
now.
is good.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. So let me just repeat. So I see a lot of stuff around community ROI and connecting community with business here and there. People are talking at different conferences. Some experts are doing like one post per month about it. And I feel like it's not enough. You know, we need to talk more about this, how to connect community with business and how to help businesses grow with the community. That's exactly why I started this kind of a project called Community ROI Wikipedia. And I already gathered a little bit of an amazing team of humans. And we are like doing very, very tiny steps in this direction. And Todd, by the way, one of those dream team members. And the idea behind this is to create where you can go and get all your how to build community for your business or around your business and how to talk to stakeholders and how to drive this metrics and all the things. So kind of like have everything in one place. And why I call it Wikipedia, because we all know Wikipedia and it's like community ROI Wikipedia. So let's see. It's kind of like following up on the community ROI podcast, of course, because I've had already so many amazing conversations and I like learn from every single conversation that it's out there. And I really want to make it on the next level and to make it available for all the people in the community world. So let's see what will happen, but we are going there like just one step at a time.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, I love that that you've convened that it was an Avengers Assemble moment of getting people together to talk about community ROI in the business language that we use. I think that's wonderful. My contribution to this is the experiment that I'm running is about running experiments. To get a little bit meta about it. I recently, was reading this book called Tiny Experiments, and it reminded me a lot of work that I've been aware of for a long time, which is this is from military tactics and history, something called the OODA loop. Colonel John Boyd was with the Air Force and was an instructor in the pilot school with them. Was famous for being able to shoot down in training flights other pilots very quickly because he was able to get inside of what their decision-making loop was and be able to move more quickly and get at whatever the target, whatever the goal happens to be in that time. Tiny experiments is sort of along that vein of setting up some a hypothesis and then something you can test within the community quickly to see if it gets traction, to see if it starts working. And so I've started implementing this in some of the community operations work where I'm the fractional for them to help them to start see quickly like the things that are perceived as valuable within the community and things that are not. I also recently had on my live stream show Toby Beresford, who comes from the world of online games and gamification, and he kind of bore that out as well. He said if you try something on a gamification front in your online community, you will pretty much know right away if it resonates with the members. You're going to see the metrics are going to be there for it. They're going to be able to demonstrate quickly, and I think by having that process of tiny experiments, by seeing what works and what doesn't very quickly, I think that's valuable to executive leaders as well as part of that business language we use because they see like you're not just sitting on the same tactics again and again. You're trying different things to see what is actually working, what is getting traction within that community, whatever it happens to be. And there are many different things we could try. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, for the year as well. Um, cool. So we've got about 10 minutes left, maybe a little bit less than that here. I'm wondering if there's a couple of questions that have stood out from the chat for anyone. The chat's been very active, and I haven't been able to keep up with all the things that are there, but I feel like I could, cover my eyes and pick one and have a lovely question for us to attack. But is there anything standing out for either of you or Kat, if you're in the chat, if you think there's one that would be good for us to address, I'd love to hit that. Oh, they're in the Q&A. Thank you. That's wonderful. How about, let's see, what are members asking today that they weren't asking for a year ago? That's interesting. We're all put on the spot here.
Yeah. Like, do you mean like what members are asking? Okay, so yeah, they ask for more time to live their lives. They ask to less
Ah,
engagement. They ask to be more precise. They ask you to tag them only if it's like really relevant to them. Because everyone kind of like we have the most precious thing in our lives, it's our time. And as a community builder, you have to really protect your members' times. So because they have lives, sorry, but they have families, they have pets, they have Netflix, worst case scenario. But remember that they always choosing between your community and like going for a walk, or your community and like calling their parents, or will go into a community and like watching a movie or whatever. So be very, very mindful and careful of their time.
Yeah, I would say the communities I work with, a lot of the community managers are leaning a bit more into consolidation because their members are feeling like things are a bit splintered or really wanting just a centralized space to be able to operate from or make decisions from or grab that value directly within the community. So overall, just consolidation and as Yurii was saying, just being a bit more concise so that everyone can a bit optimize the way that they're interacting.
yeah, that's amazing. You were talking about sort of the limited time we have. I mean, I think this is the attention economy, right? That's where value is being placed right now. And how do we protect the time of our community members, like to make it as valuable as possible when they are spending their precious time and attention on us? Like, how do we make that the optimal experience for them over uh, uh, in the
A lot of
finite?
that
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just saying a lot of that comes down to design. Like you can really optimize the design of your space so that you're able to deliver something that is concise and really mindful of everyone's time.
It's wonderful. I think so maybe one more
And also it's
question
coming back.
here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like it's like I would say it's what people are expecting in the community. Then you can kind of like guide them, and it will be a little bit easier for them to consume everything like you want them to consume, and like to sort out something that it's not relevant for them.
Oh, very, very good. Yeah, there was a little bit of lag, Yuri, but I think you're good again. So one more question here. I'm going to skip down the list a little bit. Quick question. If you have the time, how do you deal with inactive community members and how do you create engagement?
Leave them alone. Let them be. Don't touch your quiet, silent learners. Focus on active members. I feel like that's something that every community builder, at least once in their lifetime, thinking about, like, how do I engage in active members? But like, start with why. Why do we need to engage them? Engage those people who are already engaged, who are active. Like, focus on them. Bring in the most value as you can, and then if those lurkers are curious, if they feel trust, if they feel safe, on.
I would say it's also a really great way to dive into a more data-driven approach. So if you have a particular inactive community member where you see they were active at a certain time and suddenly something kind of falls off, you can really go back to your analytics and you can see, okay, what was the reason for that? How can I tell a larger story about maybe one member or segment of members and really see how you can tackle something at scale? And then if you want a more non-scalable option, you can also just reach out to that individual person and be like, hey, send a human message and see what's going on for them. Maybe it has nothing to do with your community. Maybe there are some things that they can give you in terms of feedback so that you can improve their experience. Either one, I think, gives you an approach that lets you kind of essentially meet your community where they are and take an approach that works for your particular members.
Yeah. I love that distinction. I would say from some of the research that I've seen of maybe even Reddit users that are inactives or less active in the space, you have to assume that at least about 80% of them are never going to engage directly. And and of that 20%, they might engage if it's something that's like super relevant to them and their situation at the moment. And so as you're making decisions about where to put your effort as a community leader. Um, yeah, I'm with Yuri on this. You got to go with you got to go with your actives are and spend more time with them. Um, yeah, love it. Yeah, 1990 model. Yes. So I think we're about ready to wrap up here. I'll just kind of leave a quick question with each of you. In a word or two or a short sentence at most. What is your attitude towards community building in 2026? Yuri, what do you have, man?
Go ahead, Yuri.
I hope there is no lag. I really hope though, because I have no idea how it works. So, if you can hear me, just give me a sign or something like that. One thing, it's kind of like I really believe in the community industry. And the more I hear like podcast conversations, the more I talk to people, the more I see that people are getting understanding of what the word community stands for. So it's not just a newsletter. It's not just some Instagram account.
Lag.
People are getting buy-in and they are moving more into like from small, right? Yeah. Okay, Whitney, just please go on.
Okay, hopefully I can recap what Yuri said, which was people are really looking into actually I don't know if I got it, but for me, I think it's really about keeping things simple. There's so many opportunities and so many initiatives that you can start within your community and kick off new things. but sometimes doing a simple audit of what has worked well in the past, what you're most excited about, and then just sticking with one to reduce overwhelm and seeing how that goes, that can be a really great approach to, yeah, driving impact, but in the most simple form as possible. I'm also trying to choose peace as much as possible in 2026. So the more I can streamline and focus, the better for me because I'm super multi-passionate and I like love doing community things and I want to do so much. But yeah, let's keep it simple and let's really drive impact with using our time wisely.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna bastardize a quote from the spirit of radio from Rush. You know, all this machinery making modern community can still be open-hearted. We are inundated by disruptive technology, but that connection to people, the connection to peace, that's something that we'll bring with us into 2026. That's what we can do to make the world a better place. So, um,
Love that.
thank you both for being a part of this wonderful discussion, and thank you all of you that have tuned in for the hour to spend time with us here. All three of us would love to hear from you on LinkedIn. I just dropped my LinkedIn up there as well. I think Yurii did a little bit earlier. Whitney, you should definitely drop yours in there if you've got it handy.
I'm so
Um,
bad with the chat, but literally just type my name if you want to find me, Whitney Marin.
awesome.
I'll just, yeah,
Would,
drop that
would,
in
would,
LinkedIn.
would love to continue the conversation with each and every one of you. So please do reach out. And thank you again to Hivebrite for giving us this space. And I want to remind you again, we will have a recording of this. It's going to go back out to everybody. So really glad that we could spend this time together. Have a great 2026, everybody. That's all we have for today. Take care.
Thanks,
Have
Todd. Thanks,
fun.
Yurii,
See
Thank
you.
you.
for joining us.
Bye.
Grateful to you both.